Rodgers, a couple days in as a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, we're learning more about the 41-year-old quarterback and his decision to keep playing. Bullet points in general, Chris. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I've put together a couple. One said he didn't need to keep playing for his ego. He did it for his soul.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Right.
He wanted to be there with Mike Tomlin and the guys. Another development, hates his new helmet. Loathes it. Used the same helmet for 20 years. He's been banned by the NFL. He's got 3 months to get used to another one. And my third bullet point, we still know nothing about his new wife and this alleged marriage that takes place or took place. I guess I shouldn't say alleged because apparently Braynt McFadden, Jonathan Jones, it did happen.
Has JJ confirmed the marriage yet?
JJ?
I have not gone to the courthouse because I don't know what courthouse I'd need to go to.
Yo, good point. Good point, my friend. Let's get on to what is going on actually at Steelers training camp. B-Mac, a former member of the Steelers, two-time Super Bowl champ. How excited are you about this potential Aaron Rodgers to DK Metcalf connection?
I'm very, very excited because DK Metcalf, clearly he's still a wide receiver one option, very, very athletic, a massive presence in the offense, and he provides an element of size, something the Pittsburgh Steelers haven't had the luxury of having since going back to the Plexico Burress days. And remember all the outstanding plays he was able to make in a Steeler uniform. And with Aaron Rodgers, you know, throughout his career, you know, throughout the highs and the lows, he's always had a legit wide receiver one option to rely on, and one would think DK would be able to provide the production that's needed. But me personally, JJ, when you look at this potential connection, this puts more pressure on Arthur Smith as a play caller because he will have to be very, very creative in finding ways to get DK Metcalf involved, finding ways to have him seeing the targets, because remember, that was an issue with George Pickens a year ago, the lack of targets, the lack of opportunities. So let's see, can Arthur Smith have a better game plan in play for his new wide receiver one player in DK Metcalf to have him heavily involved in the passing game?
Yeah, he's obviously going to have to be heavily involved. And I liked Arthur Smith earlier this week when he was asked how involved will DK Metcalf be. He's like, well, we didn't pay him $30 million in trade for him to run the wishbone, right? So they are going to be throwing the football to DK Metcalf, but they are going to need some other options out there. Look right here at their offensive playmakers right now. This will not be the group that I think when they trot out 11 personnel, B-Mac, I don't think that Robert Woods is going to be starting out there week one. And look, it could be another tight end, right? We know they had interest in Jonnu Smith, an interest in Kyle Pitts. No one is getting added to the Pittsburgh Steelers roster right now because no one is willing to deal a player right now. Pittsburgh is going to lowball a team. Somebody's going to say, we don't need to do that. We're going on vacation. You can't get that guy. And then we're going to get into July and August. And the Steelers are it's going to be very clear they need another pass catcher at wide receiver or tight end, and someone is going to come available, and I believe that ultimately they will make a trade at that point. So the group that's there right now, I don't think will be the starting group when we get to week one. There's still another element that has to be added to this Steelers offense.
JJ, since we have you here, let's talk about some of the business of the NFL. Specifically, TJ Watt is a holdout right now. He wants more money. He's entering the last year of his deal. It's not like he's not making any money. He's making $28 million a year. There are only 6 players at his position that are getting paid higher than him. However, he's not participating. Do you think that this is more if he's trying to make a statement, he is eventually going to play, or is he really going to dig his heels, into this one?
Yeah, you know what $28 million is not? It's not $40 million, which is what Myles Garrett makes. Right? And so, you know, Myles Garrett is the person that TJ Watt is most often compared to. Right? And we see right here, TJ Watt, he's in the final year of his deal. And he has been the heart and soul of this Steelers team. He is their best player, and he is not their highest paid player. When you go trade for DK Metcalf and pay him $30 million, going into a year where TJ Watt can be an unrestricted free agent next year, and that's never going to happen. Okay, let's just go ahead and say that. But you needed to pay TJ Watt. And look right here. If they had done this last year, the price would have been about $34 million, right? You could have even gone above Nick Bosa, 35, 36, right? But now that you waited, Max Crosby went out and got 35.5. And Danielle Hunter, with an interesting structure, got more than that. And Myles Garrett got 40. And so you're talking about a player in TJ Watt who is a perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate who tapered off at the last month of last season, and that will be held against him. His age will be held against him in contract negotiations. But we have seen B-Mac before. He is willing to hold out into training camp to make sure that he gets his way. And if there is not a contract by the start of training camp, I would have to believe that he will hold in for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And one thing that you mentioned, JJ, that I would like to highlight, he's not even the highest paid player on this team. An outsider is the highest paid player on the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yep.
And when I say outsider, a player that played on another organization, with another organization. TJ Watt is a homegrown player. They drafted him. He's developed to be one of the best playmakers in the National Football League on the defensive side. And he is not the highest paid player on the team when he is the best. So that's one issue. And then you talk about Myles Garrett. TJ Watt and Myles Garrett, their career has mirrored each other phenomenally. When you talk about the consistency, the dominance, but you saw the graphic there. Since 2020, TJ Watt has been the best sacking player in the National Football League, followed by Myles Garrett. So if you're TJ Watt, you're not taking a dollar less than the guy who many believe is the best pass rusher in the game. But the numbers tell all of us since 2020, based on the stats, TJ Watt has been the best pass rusher in the game because he has the most sacks. So with Pittsburgh understanding and knowing this was coming down the pipeline, maybe seeing the money they're allocating to Aaron Rodgers could really expedite things to get TJ Watt signed. Because I agree with you, JJ, if there's no extension for TJ Watt, he will be a hold-in training camp. And we've seen through past outings, when TJ Watt is not in a game, Pittsburgh Steelers, they don't win a lot of ball games without 90.
It is an interesting situation there. Nobody necessarily getting mad at the Steelers for the business of the Steelers. However, a different story when it comes to the business of the Bengals. And two very different stories going on with two very different players there. JJ, you're already smiling because you know we're about to get into this. Between Trey Hendrickson and now Shemar Stewart. Trey Hendrickson, he's holding out. He wants more money. Shemar Stewart, he's the rookie. He doesn't want a different rookie contract than they've offered in the past, which is what the Bengals are trying to do. How much of a mess and is the panic meter right now with these two players when it comes to the Bengals?
Well, now that it's, minicamp is over for the Cincinnati Bengals, the panic is now low, right? Because everybody's going to Cancun and Cabo, and nothing's really going to get done right now, right? What's done is done. I'll start with Trey Hendrickson because he's an interesting one. I think he's 31 years old. He has led the NFL in sacks, and that is something that he does really, really well, right? Every game, you can almost set your watch to it. There's going to be a Trey Hendrickson sack or 1.5 sacks in a game. Kind of average against the run, though. He's not a guy, we just talked about Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, TJ Watt. Trey Hendrickson, as good as he is not the sort of player that teams have to game plan against beginning on Monday when they play on Sunday, right? And so what is that going to be worth to a Cincinnati Bengals organization that does not guarantee money really beyond the first year for any player who is not Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase in their recent history? How much do you want to allocate to him in the future? And what is ultimately going to make him happy? And then lastly, you can't really deal him because it's hard to set his market. Who is over there calling for him? If they were going to deal him, they probably would have done it over the past couple of months, but no one called. And then next, Shemar Stewart, an interesting one where we're talking about holdouts or hold-ins or whatever. This is neither, because Shemar Stewart is not under contract, because he hasn't signed his contract, because of an interesting clause in his deal that would essentially say if you make a mistake, if you get suspended, not only can we void your guarantees for this year or maybe for the upcoming year, we can void your guarantees for the entirety of your standard 4-year rookie contract. And that is something that has not been in Cincinnati Bengals contracts for rookies before this year. They are trying to create a new precedent, which is the Cincinnati Bengals' right. And it is also Shemar Stewart's right to not accept that. Now, we will see if it was wise of him to say what he said earlier in the week, calling out ownership, saying that they care more about winning an argument than actually winning games, and leaving minicamp early. Not sure that that's going to work out in his favor. We'll see which side budges. I don't know that either is going to anytime soon.
The front office of the Cincinnati Bengals is the equivalent of a living room filled of paint buckets with 10 3-year-olds in the living room. It's a mess. Paint is everywhere. That's how they've handled these situations. Go back to 2024, a year ago, for Trey Hendrickson. Go back to 2024 before the draft. He already made it known to the organization at that time he would like a new deal. Or trade me, is what he stated. Cincinnati, no, don't worry, we're going to take care of you. Some of the same things we heard that was said to Jamar Chase. Well, Trey Hendrickson, he put his head down, he came into the building, was the ultimate professional. All he did was lead the league in sacks, 17.5. So now he has what? More financial leverage because of his play. So now, Cincinnati, you knew what he was going to ask for because his play warranted those discussions. All you did was allow Max Crosby, Danielle Hunter, Myles Garrett to re-sign. And guess what? Didn't even try to trade him. Was adamant about doing so. Now, do you expect him to play for less money than what he had in sacks? No, that's not happening. And to your point, JJ, if I'm Shemar Stewart, no question, I'm not going to be a guinea pig. You're not going to experiment on me and put new language in because, hey, I woke up and I want to add new language to a rookie deal, first rounder. No, the man left minicamp. He's no longer there. He left. And he can't be fined because he hasn't signed any contract with that said organization in the Cincinnati Bengals. So me personally, when you talk about a team that the aspiration should be playoff, get back into the playoff, into the tournament, they have so many other things going on that could really hamper their success, especially if you look at how bad they've gotten off in the season in years past. They don't need any distractions, but because of the paint mess they have in their living room, it's a major distraction.
I like that. The Bengals front office now compared to toddlers, BMAC. And also, it's kind of like, you know, if you say, like, do you want some dino nuggets, and they want them one day, and the next day they don't, and then they throw them at your face, and you're left wondering, what do you want, Bengals?
Again, this time of year in the NFL, it's about who's not there, not who is actually there. I guess McCaffrey's there. Jaden Daniels is there. Terry McLaurin's not there, though. Oh, Deebo Samuel was there. We'll get to that in just a second. But Dan Quinn,
me video.
Dan Quinn had something to say a couple of days ago about Terry McLaurin's absence as he looks for a big new deal.
Hey, sometimes football and business, they intersect. And this is one of those times. Terry is a fantastic teammate and really puts in the work and spent a lot of time with him already this offseason. So, but the business side of things, you know, Adam and their crew and Terry and his group, they'll let them work through that.
All right, and for more on that, we want to bring in Jonathan Jones and Braynt McFadden once again. JJ, Terry McLaurin's coming off his first All-Pro year. Great season in the rookie year for Jaden Daniels. What's the latest on those two sides working toward a contract as he continues to pile up the fines for missing minicamp?
Yeah, great political answer there from Dan Quinn, really saying a lot without saying anything at all. This is where things stand with Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders. I don't know that they're really close, and it's going to be really hard anytime soon for them to get closer. Terry McLaurin has been with the Commanders his entire career. Remember when he came in 2019, he was basically a 24-year-old rookie. And that's important because when he finally got his 3-year contract extension after so many bad years with the Washington Commanders and the football team and everything they were going through, he was the voice. He was the leader. He was the captain. He gets that contract extension. He has a second-team All-Pro season this past year, and he wants to capitalize on it now being on the other side of 30, this being potentially his last bite at the apple at a place where he has really put in the work. The issue, though, is as he continues to get up there in age, is this what the Washington Commanders wanted to vote a number of years and guaranteed money to? And I'm going to show you right here on this graphic where Terry McLaurin probably wants to go. Slot him right underneath Tyreek Hill because T. Higgins and Jalen Waddle are #2 receivers on their respective teams. But Terry McLaurin, a #1 wide receiver. Now, it's going to be difficult because you can sit here and say, all right, is he worth being paid more than a Devontae Smith, who is not on this graphic, but is a #2? It's hard to say, all right, all these guys got paid in their 20s, and now he's 30 plus. But that's the way that the market works. So we'll see if ultimately a deal can be struck anytime anytime soon. But again, everybody's going into the summer, so maybe not.
And they're hoping, they being Commanders fans, that they get this deal done, and they've got Debo there now, who they traded a 5th-round pick for, and they can have this great duo together. Sometimes not showing up to minicamp is actually better than showing up. B-Mac, I don't know if you've seen this video that's been circulating social media. Fans just ripping into Debo Samuel for, I think it's less the way he looks and more the slowness. It seems as though
he got a little tummy?
Well, I think it's less that and more he just doesn't look very nimble. B-Mac, what do you see when you look at this video?
Well, it's summer.
Well, for the fans that are ripping Debo Samuel because of, to your point, how fast or the lack thereof he's looking, this is a route on air. As you guys see there in the graphics, there's no defenders anywhere covering any of the wide receivers. Everyone is running routes on air. It's more of a rhythm type thing instead of intensity being involved. We know who Debo Samuel is. And even though he's been dealing with injuries, especially a year ago, when he's healthy, when he's highly ready to go, he's a guy that can create separation. He's a guy that can be a playmaker. He's a guy that can take 10 and 20-yard gains and turn them into 40 or 50. We've seen that. So for fans, just need to pump the brakes, because when you're on air, especially in minicamp, you're not going full speed. You rarely see veterans go full speed, especially in this day and age of the NFL in terms of OTAs and minicamps. Heck, I played with Troy Polamalu. Troy practiced with sneakers on. Went half speed. So I can imagine if back then people recorded Troy practicing, how the hecklers would have came out. But when you turn on the game tape, it was a different guy. And we've seen that throughout Debo Samuel's career. So for people questioning the quickness or the speed, just go back and watch what he's done throughout his professional career that has warranted him to still be in the National Football League and a big-time contributor.
There's just not enough going on. I remember a couple years ago, it was every video of Tua trying to throw down the field. It's like, look, the guy can't throw the ball. We're about a month away from training camps beginning, JJ, and there's some big names who are looking to be traded, who are on that block. Kirk Cousins, Jalen Ramsey, among those two. Is there any kind of movement toward a deal with anybody at this point with those two?
Not a huge amount of movement, at least with Jalen Ramsey. I'll take him first. Because of his contract, where the Miami Dolphins very curiously made him, once again, the highest paid cornerback in NFL history last offseason, when they did not have to. Now, of course, they're regretting that. Now they're trying to get out of his contract, and it depends on what team who is acquiring Jalen Ramsey, if they will take half, 75%, all of the contract, ultimately to make this trade go through. The team that everyone will point to is the Los Angeles Rams. There is interest there, but we heard from Sean McVay earlier this week, who did not seem that there's a lot of urgency in getting that done. Also, the Rams having minicamp out in Maui. Maybe the plane's full, not bringing Jalen Ramsey along for that. We'll see. Kirk Cousins is a guy who, before Aaron Rodgers finally signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers, maybe things were going to happen. Maybe he wasn't going to show up to mandatory minicamp. He's there, and I think he's going to remain there for at least a little while. Look, Michael Penix Jr., coming off his rookie season, let's not forget, when he was in college, he tore his ACL twice. So he is not a model of health necessarily. The Falcons are one play away from having to turn to a backup. And if they do not have Kirk Cousins, to whom they have paid $100 million over the last 2 seasons, they're going to have to turn to Easton Stick. And so the Falcons are saying, that's what the money's for. We paid you to be here. Yes, you wanted to be the starting quarterback, but right now you're QB2. And you may ultimately become QB1. I think what Kirk Cousins' only hope is, and you don't want to hope this, but it's going to be an injury somewhere where some team ultimately needs to get him at some point in August in training camp. But until that point, Kirk Cousins, as we have been telling you since December, is going to remain an Atlanta Falcon.
If you want to check out potential landing spots for Terry McLaurin, if for some reason he gets moved, check out Cody Benjamin's article at CBSSports.com on our NFL page. Some potential landing spots there. We know where our NFL Today crew is going to land week 1, Lambeau Field for Packers and Lions. The NFL Today going to be hitting the road several Sundays throughout the season, beginning week 1.